Excuse me. Snacking, starving. Dinner's coming soon. In my stable, there's a bunch of horses. Well, not my stable that I own. I mean the stables where I and others are stabled. Horses of the same color. Well, no, motley, but not of the different color of the aphorism. And they are all frothy about Donald Trump, as if the world has ended and there he is holding the door open. I don't like him, did not vote for him, never would, because he is one step beyond just one, and there are his friends. Mostly otherwise he is irrelevant to me, or so common, such a common problem, one I see everywhere, a problem of the West, and so much less interesting than the impulses he represents, impulses of hate, not solved at all by hating him or his fans. His Americanness in foreign affairs arrogance mimicked exactly by Biden and Harris and Starmer. I don't hate him because he's not bright. His attitude towards women is pretty thick on the ground, and so is his racism. I do understand why he is the object of hate for haters. I mean, there has to be someone for haters. I hate some people, but I don't talk about it, advertise it. I don't operate under its influence. I saw a guy on the news program yesterday, and I hated him. His name is Scott Jennings. He's one of those smirkers and a Hamaser. There's a lot of them about. Hamasers believe Hamas is the root of everything that's wrong in the world, is killing the children in Gaza, is starving them. Very simply, the good and worthy Americans and Israelis are trying to feed them, but Hamas steals the food and shoots the children trying to get it. He's the big bad. They are the big bad wolf. And I watched this episode with the marvelous Peter Beinart, a Jewish man, disagreeing with Scott Jennings. And I looked at it and I thought, well, two things. You have to be honest and say that most of us, as we live, are operating with what Yuval Harari would call a story. And there is an element of brainwashing to that. So if you have an American person involved in politics, or an American person, I suppose, or a British person, or a Russian person, doesn't really matter, an Iranian person, they have an investment in a certain view that puts them in a good light. And for most actors in the world, with very few, that requires some effort to put their civilization and their history in a decent light. So I look at Scott Jennings and I think, you know, you're brainwashed. You have to conclude. First off, you have to conclude that America has a right to exist. The same argument occurs when we say, does Israel have a right to exist, given how Israel is currently existing? Israel is currently existing or trying to exist exactly the way the European in America tried to exist. They are eliminating the current population, exterminating, cleansing. It doesn't really matter what term you have. So if you have a sort of patriotism or allegiance or loyalty to your tribe, if that's important to you, you have to say that America is a force for good in the world, for instance, the United States. And it seems to me that Democrats largely believe that, and Republicans largely believe that, certainly the basis of their shared views on foreign policy. So that we are fighting the demons or we're proxy fighting the demons in Ukraine. We're proxy fighting the demons in Gaza. And I don't think it's any more complicated than that. Again, the horses in my stable will all say, well, Putin is Satan. Hamas is Satan. And then we drop right into the groove that our civilization has sustained our civilization for thousands of years. It's not a quibble. It's not a slight step in a different direction. This woman Slotkin, who's a Midwestern senator, I believe, was raked over the coals by breaking points. And it was fascinating to watch it because she's saying, you have to understand I'm a decent person. And a decent person has qualms about stating what is obvious. In other words, our ally, our aircraft carrier in the Middle East, as some people have honestly put it, the only liberal democracy in the Middle East, etc., 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 is committing at the very least systemic killing of non-combatants. Let's call it that. And so in order to justify that, because there are people who want to be able to justify these things to themselves and to their gods, they will say, well, it's not really us, it's Satan, it's the evildoers who are causing this to happen, despite all the evidence to the contrary. And at the very least, you could say, well, they are equivalent. I wouldn't, because I would make a list, and I would ask Scott Jennings if he has any concept of history. And I would say, do you know who the Sicarii were? Do you know who the Iceni were? You know who the Lakota were. You know who the Pontiac was. You know who Nat Turner was. You know who the IRA are and were. You know of all these entities that have existed in the world in which you live, in the Western world. You know of all these. Now, are you going to tell me that they are all, what you are telling me is that they are all Hamas. They can all be lumped into that. And there you have the big struggle of the West at the moment, which hopefully is dying. I hope that the West is dying. Absolutely useless. Historical movement in the world. In order to justify the West's continuation, and he's not just asking the West to survive with a sense of humility, he's not asking the West to be allowed to continue and to change itself and to atone for its errors and make reparations and stuff like that. No. That is not in the books. The books is to say that they've always been right, they've been totally right, and the rest have always been wrong. And for me, and I don't really find a great deal of difference between the horses, those horses in my stable, and the other horses of similar color that are busy demonizing Donald Trump and demonizing Donald Trump's oeuvre. I don't see a resistance to Scott, who's probably a Trumper with qualms, but I don't really see the difference. If you're justifying your crusade in the world as being part of an army of the good, then you're going to have to clarify that to yourself. And when you've got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris behaving exactly the same way in terms of the Middle East and Ukraine as Trump, there's nothing that can be done to help you. You are a horse of the same color.